I didn't ask to plan the wedding. I just offered to help. You know, small things, flowers, cake deposit, maybe the sound system if they got pricey. But of course, when Marcus told Jasmine I'd offered to help, she heard, cover most of it. And I did, quietly, like always. It started with the venue. Jasmine fell in love with a place called Riverside Manor, the kind of converted warehouse that photographs well with Edison bulbs and exposed brick. I smiled when she showed me the pictures, even though I'd been in that building long before it became a wedding factory. My old friend Ray used to own it back when it was an auto repair shop. After he passed, I bought it off his son for pennies, cleaned it up, rented it out for small events. I never changed the name. Let them think Riverside Manor was some brand and not just Ray's old garage with new paint. So when Jasmine said it was her dream venue, I didn't say a word. I just made a call, booked it, paid in full, never told her I owned it. No need to stir up drama, I told myself. Let them have their day. I paid for the catering deposit too, and the floral down payment. The DJ was through my nephew's boy, so I got a discount there, but still covered his booking fee. Every time Jasmine sent an invoice to Marcus, he forwarded it to me. And every time I paid it. I didn't do it for gratitude. God knows I gave up on that years ago. I did it because I wanted to see my son happy. I raised that boy by myself after his mother walked out. I worked construction until my back screamed so he could wear clean clothes and graduate without debt. If paying for his wedding gave him one day where he didn't have to worry about money, I figured it was worth it. But Jasmine didn't like me. She never said it outright, but I could see it. The way she flinched when I spoke too loud. The way she corrected me when I said reception instead of celebration dinner. The way she once said, "We want a modern vibe, not a backyard barbecue." I didn't argue. I just stopped offering menu ideas. The day of the wedding, I wore navy blue. Like she asked. No loud colors, no patterns, nothing too attention-grabbing. She texted me 2 weeks before, the palette is neutral tones only. I looked like a waiter in that suit, but I wore it for Marcus. When I arrived at the venue, Riverside Manor, the place I owned, I smiled at the valet. He didn't recognize me, of course. Most of the staff didn't. That was the point. I handed him my keys, took a deep breath, and walked toward the doors. Inside, everything looked beautiful. I'll give Jasmine credit for that. The lights were warm, the florals understated, and the music just loud enough to cover small talk. I nodded at a few distant relatives, smiled at strangers, and headed toward the seating chart near the entrance. I scanned the list once, twice. No, Franklin, Washington. I thought maybe they used father of the groom, but no. I checked every name tag on every table. I wasn't listed. I turned to a young server carrying a tray of champagne. "Excuse me, son," I said gently. "I can't seem to find my seat." He looked startled. "Oh. They told me you'd be in the side room out back." My stomach dropped. "The what?" "The storage area. It's been decorated, I think." He shifted uncomfortably. "They said it was to keep things orderly." He led me there, past the reception hall, through a narrow corridor, and into what used to be Ray's part storage. There were folding chairs, a small card table with one pitcher of water, a stack of grocery store cookies, and a floral arrangement. Wilted carnations sat crooked in a plastic vase. I stood there staring. The storage room smelled like cleaning fluid and motor oil. One of the fluorescent bulbs flickered overhead. I sat down heavily. No one else was in the room. From the wall, I could hear the muffled voice of the DJ announcing the wedding party. I pulled a handkerchief from my jacket and dabbed the corner of my eye. I didn't cry because I was surprised. I cried because I wasn't. I had known from the moment Jasmine insisted on handling the guest list herself. From the moment she said, "We only have so many seats," but don't worry, you'll be close. I'd known. I just didn't want to believe my own son would let it happen. The music swelled. Applause echoed through the wall. Then laughter. I looked around that storage room, my storage room, and exhaled. They thought I was small. They forgot whose name was on the deed. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the little brass key that had been on my ring for 15 years. It gleamed under the dim fluorescent light. I tucked it in my palm, straightened my tie, and sat back. I wasn't going to ruin their moment. Not yet. But when they tried to dance through the night, they were going to learn exactly who they sat next to a mop bucket. I stayed seated in that storage room for the better part of an hour. At some point, someone brought me a bottle of water and an unopened pack of crackers. They didn't speak, just set it down and walked away. I looked at the crackers, then laughed to myself. Quiet, bitter. That was their idea of hospitality. A man funds half the wedding, and they feed him like a homeless person at a soup kitchen. The music pulsed through the wall. The DJ was doing his best to get the crowd hyped, calling names, playing all the usual hits. I knew the order of things by heart. First the introductions, then the toasts, then the family portraits. I'd memorized that sequence from decades of working events at this very building. I knew what was coming next. I sat still, listening. It wasn't long before I heard them call out names for the formal wedding photos. And now, let's get the family of the groom up here. I didn't move. The door creaked open behind me. Devon stepped in, looking nervous. My grandson, Marcus's boy from before Jasmine, back when he had sense. He was in his early 20s now, studying engineering at Georgia Tech. Smart kid, too observant for his own good. Grandpa, he said gently. They're taking pictures. Did you know they didn't call you? I just looked at him. He winced. Jasmine said it was a timing thing, that you'd get a solo shot later, but I know that's not true. I reached out and patted his shoulder. Don't worry about me, son. Let them have their pictures. Devon sat down beside me and looked around the storage room, disgust written all over his face. This is where they sat you? He shook his head. Grandpa, Mom would have flipped a table if anyone tried this with Pop. I nodded. That's because your mom knew who she was dealing with. Jasmine thinks she married up, but the building she's standing in? I built it from the ground up. Devon's eyes flicked to the key in my hand. What's that? I held it up between two fingers. The master key. He smiled a little. You own this place, don't you? I didn't answer directly. You know what I learned from all those years in construction, Devon? Never forget where the foundation lies. I chuckled, but my chest ached. You know what hurts? It's not just that they disrespected me. It's that Marcus let them. My own son. I didn't need a spotlight. I didn't even need a front row seat. But I damn sure didn't expect to be hidden behind a tool cabinet like some shameful secret. Devon's jaw tightened. You going to do something? I looked him square in the eye. Not yet. He nodded. Okay. And then he left. Smart kid. I waited. Time passed. I knew the DJ's playlist down to the transitions. Around 7:30 p.m., I heard the volume dip and someone clinked a glass for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, the toasts are about to begin. Right on schedule. I stood slowly, straightened my jacket, and walked toward the main hall. I didn't go in. I stood near the service entrance just outside the double doors, looking through the glass. There they were, Marcus and Jasmine, seated at the long sweetheart table, gold accents, overhead greenery. Jasmine looked like royalty. Her mother was leaning in close, laughing too loudly. Marcus was smiling, nodding, sipping champagne. They didn't look around for me. Not once. A cousin I barely recognized stood and gave a toast. Something about love, perseverance, and blended families. People clapped. The DJ queued up some R&B, and the first dance began. I watched from the side as Marcus led Jasmine onto the floor. That's when I reached into my jacket and pulled out my phone. I scrolled to my saved contacts and called Mr. Peterson, the real estate broker I'd been working with for the past year. "It's Franklin," I said plainly. "Go ahead with the finalization." "You sure? They're dancing now." He didn't ask for clarification. "We had everything set up already. Paperwork signed, payment scheduled, buyer ready." I had agreed to delay the closing until after the wedding out of courtesy, but courtesy expired with that folding chair in the storage room. "It'll be official within the hour," he said. "I'll text you when the title office confirms." I hung up and slipped the phone back into my jacket. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel sad anymore. I felt clear. Let them dance. Let them raise glasses and post Instagram stories and toast to forever. Let them soak up every second of their stolen fantasy. Because when the lights came back on, they were going to learn the hard way that I wasn't a guest in their fantasy. They were trespassers in mine, and I had the paperwork to prove it. The hour passed like a countdown in my bones. I stood near the corner of the reception hall, invisible to everyone who didn't know where to look. The music played on, couples twirled, laughter rose like smoke from expensive cigars, and champagne glasses clinked over vanilla promises no one meant to keep. I kept my phone close, one hand checking it like it held my last nerve. But I wasn't angry anymore. That left me the moment I hit send on that call to Mr. Peterson. Now I felt cold, steady, like I'd just stepped out of fire and into ice water. Everything slowed down. The chandeliers sparkled like cheap stars. The rented flower centerpieces, all white peonies and fake eucalyptus, looked like plastic now. The whole thing felt staged, like I was watching a scene from a play I funded but was never cast in. I moved quietly along the edge of the room. No one noticed. They weren't looking for me. Why would they? I wasn't invited to the photo line. I wasn't in the program. And apparently, I wasn't even meant to be seated where the living had light. But I didn't come for their validation. I came for the timing. Right around 8:40, I saw him. Victor, the venue manager I'd hired myself years ago, back when Riverside Manor was just an empty shell I was trying to revive. He was standing near the back hallway holding a clipboard and looking around like he was waiting for a signal. I gave him a slow nod. He blinked once, tucked the clipboard under his arm, and disappeared down the corridor. That was the cue. I made my way outside. The night was finally beginning to cool down. Crickets were chirping in the trees, and you could hear the buzz of summer holding on for dear life. I took a seat at one of the empty patio tables far from the dance floor and waited. It didn't take long. Inside, the DJ made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, can I get your attention, please? We're now moving to the cake cutting and reception closing remarks from the couple." I sipped my water slowly, feeling the chills spread from the bottom of the glass to my chest. Then the murmur began. Small at first. A few confused glances near the restrooms. Someone trying a door handle that wouldn't turn. Another guest calling over a server, whispering, "Why is the bar shutting down? Bathrooms are locked." I saw Jasmine from the window. Her smile dropped just slightly. Just enough. She stood up and walked toward Victor, who'd reappeared by the side doors. "I need to speak with you," she said, her voice fake calm but sharp around the edges. Victor smiled politely and stepped outside with her, directly into my line of sight. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, hands folded behind his back. "There's been a transfer. Legal turnover finalized 15 minutes ago. Property ownership has changed. We're closing down the event per Clause 14B of the rental agreement." I nearly smiled at the way her expression fell apart. "What the hell are you talking about?" she snapped. Victor didn't flinch. Clause 14b allows immediate closure response in case of property sale. And since the original owner sold the venue as of this evening. Who? Who sold it? Victor turned and pointed at me. He did. Jasmine spun and our eyes met. I stayed seated, one leg crossed over the other, calm as a lake in winter. Marcus came rushing out behind her, confused. What's going on? Jasmine nearly screamed. Your father just sold the damn venue. He looked at me like I'd grown horns. Dad? I set my water glass down, stood slowly, and adjusted my jacket. You sat me in the storage room, I said evenly, behind the tool cabinet in the building I've owned since 2009. The silence hit like a slap. Jasmine's mother came barreling out next, already dialing someone on her phone. Victor calmly informed her that legal enforcement would begin shortly if the building wasn't vacated. He handed her a printed document, signed, stamped, and filed. People began pouring out the doors behind them, murmuring, confused. A few were filming on their phones already. I told y'all I paid for the venue, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. I just never said I owned it. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. Devon was standing near the back, arms folded, eyes locked on me like I was the final piece of a puzzle that finally made sense. The DJ's speakers cut off mid-song. One of the bartenders wheeled a cart down the path, muttering about the end of his shift. Chairs were being stacked. A child started crying. Jasmine turned back to me, mouth shaking. You ruined our wedding. I gave her the smallest smile I could manage without letting my teeth show. No, I said softly. You ruined the invitation. The wedding was just the invoice. And I walked right past her, down the path I'd paved myself, in shoes they told me not to wear, across bricks I'd chosen myself, in a building they tried to erase me from. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. They were standing in a dream they never owned. And I just took the walls down. I walked down that pathway like it was a runway made for me and me alone. I could hear my dress shoes clicking against the stone, slow and steady. Behind me, voices rose in panic. Jasmine yelling, Marcus stammering, chairs scraping, someone banging on a locked bathroom door like it owed them an explanation. I didn't turn around. The humid night pressed in on my skin, but I felt light. Lighter than I'd felt in years, like I had just unloaded the weight of being invisible, dismissed, and tolerated. All those years of biting my tongue at dinner tables I paid for. All those church speeches about humility while folks wrote me out of my own legacy. Gone, just like the access to that reception hall. As I reached the end of the gravel path, Victor caught up to me. He was out of breath, holding a set of keys and a folder. It's done, he said. Buyer signed electronically. Deposit cleared. Title company will follow up next week. Good, I said. I took the folder and slipped it into my jacket like it was a dinner receipt. He hesitated. Are you okay? I looked at him, a man who'd worked for me for 10 years, watched me repair fixtures and negotiate contracts when business was thin. A man who'd never once treated me like anything less than the owner, even when guests assumed otherwise. I'm more than okay, I told him. I'm free. I watched him walk back toward the building, shoulders squared. Inside, the DJ had gone quiet. People were filing out like ants from a flooded hill, confused, overdressed, holding their heels in one hand and their dignity in the other. I took a seat on one of the wooden benches near the rose bushes. The summer air buzzed with crickets, and in the distance someone was yelling about a refund. Devon appeared a few minutes later, calm, composed, holding 2 slices of cake on paper plates. Figured you didn't get one, he said, handing one to me. I didn't, I said, but I got the building. We both laughed, quiet and sharp. He sat down beside me and looked toward the crowd gathering at the front of the venue. Some guests were calling Ubers. Others were standing around with confused looks and plastic cups full of flat champagne. Everyone's saying this is going to go viral, Devon said. Someone already posted a clip of Jasmine screaming in front of the DJ booth. Caption says, "Bride kicked out by landlord who's also the groom's dad." I took a bite of cake. It was too sweet, with that fake vanilla extract aftertaste that tries too hard to be elegant. "I hope they get the lighting right," I said. "This side of the property photographs better." Devon grinned. "You're ruthless, Grandpa." "No," I corrected. "I'm observant and exhausted." We sat in silence for a while. Then I asked the question I'd been holding in my chest since the day Marcus said, "She's just different, Dad. You got to get used to how she does things." "Do you think you really didn't know?" Devon shrugged, picking at his cake. He knew, but he let her run the show. He wanted peace more than he wanted respect. That hit like a cold splash of water, even though I knew it was true. "That's what hurts most," I said. "Not that she tried me, but that he let her." "You taught him grace," Devon said. "But Jasmine taught him silence." That sat heavy in the space between us. By now, the parking lot was half empty. Guests were walking in confused circles, trying to figure out if the event was truly over or just on pause. A few were still clinging to centerpieces like they might be parting gifts. The venue staff were rolling carts out one by one, their movements smooth and rehearsed. I saw Marcus standing alone near the fountain, his jacket off, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He looked like a man who'd been spun in a dryer and hung out to dry in the wrong zip code. He saw me but didn't come over. Just stood there watching me. I didn't wave. You don't wave to someone who watched you get pushed into a storage room and said nothing. A few minutes later, Jasmine marched out with her heels in her hand and her makeup streaked. She shouted something at a staff member, then kicked one of the flower arrangements off its pedestal. The bouquet scattered across the sidewalk like it knew it had served the wrong queen. Victor appeared again, cool as ever. "I asked security to clear the property within 15 minutes, he said. "New owner doesn't want footage showing late-night trespassing." I nodded. "That's fair." Devon checked his phone. The clip just hit 500,000 views. One of the top comments says, "That's not a father-in-law. That's a boss." I laughed harder than I expected to. The sound of it echoed off the empty courtyard. Cathartic, raw. "You know," I said, finishing my cake, "I thought I'd feel guilt or maybe regret." "Do you?" "No. I feel like I just repossessed my own damn name." Devon stood and reached out his hand. "Come on, Grandpa. Let's go home. This wedding's over." I took his hand, stood tall, and walked down that gravel path one last time. Not as a guest, not as the groom's father, not as someone who was asked to blend in. I walked as the man who built the foundation they danced on and made sure they'd never forget whose name was under their feet. The next morning was quiet. No calls, no apologies, no messages from my son, just the soft hum of my air conditioner and the faint scent of coffee from the pot I'd set to brew automatically. You'd think after what happened my phone would be blowing up, but silence. Silence is what people use when they think they can outweigh your dignity. I made myself a cup of black coffee and sat by the window. Sunlight cut across my living room in clean golden lines. Outside, the neighborhood kids were already playing basketball like nothing had shifted in the world. But something had. Something in me. I had been buried under politeness for so long that I forgot what it felt like to stand upright without explanation. For years, I thought being quiet was the same thing as being wise. But quiet never stopped people from writing you out of your own story. It just made it easier for them to pretend you weren't there to begin with. I sipped my coffee and opened my tablet. The first thing I saw was a screenshot of Jasmine mid-scream, her mouth wide, her arms flailing like a puppet caught in its own strings. The caption, "Bride evicted by groom's dad during reception, and it was legal." 3 million views and climbing. I tapped the comments. Most were strangers laughing or gasping. A few were trying to guess the location. Some were saying I was savage. Others called it king behavior. But the ones that hit hardest were from men my age. One read, "They think we won't do it, but they forget we already survived worse." Another, "He did what every grandfather wanted to do but never had the deed." I didn't reply. Just bookmarked the page and closed the app. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. It was Marcus. He looked exhausted, suit wrinkled, tie gone, eyes bloodshot. My boy, my grown man boy, still handsome, still soft in the face when he was nervous. He didn't bring Jasmine. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside and pointed toward the couch. He sat down like his legs didn't trust the floor. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. He looked at the framed photo of him on my shelf, 8 years old, missing a front tooth, smiling like he'd just won the lottery. "I didn't know they sat you in the storage room," he said. I raised my brow. "I didn't," he insisted. "I thought you were at table 4 with Uncle Charles and Aunt V. That's what the chart said." I said nothing. "I didn't check when I got there," he admitted. "Jasmine handled the logistics. You saw me after the ceremony. Did you come check on me?" His face fell. "No. You saw me when the photos were taken. Did you ask where I was?" He swallowed. "No. And during the toasts, when every other elder stood up and clapped?" He looked down. "No, Dad." I leaned forward. "That's what hurts, Marcus. Not Jasmine. Not the chair in the storage room. You didn't look for me. You didn't defend me. You didn't even notice I was gone." He opened his mouth, then closed it. "That venue, the one you and your wife pretended I just booked like some favor," I continued. "I bought that land with my first construction contract. I laid the foundation. I negotiated the permits. I rebuilt that building with my own hands and sweat. And the night you married that woman, you let her erase me." He started to cry. Not sobbing, just quiet tears like something finally cracked and he couldn't glue it fast enough. "I was trying to keep the peace," he said. "There is no peace without respect," I said. "You kept her comfort and lost my trust." He nodded slowly, wiping his eyes. "I'm sorry." I stood and walked to my cabinet, pulled out a small folder, and handed it to him. Inside were copies of every receipt I'd paid for his wedding. Venue, catering, florals, decorations, all in my name. "I don't need reimbursement," I said. "But I do want the record clear." He flipped through the papers, his hands shaking. "You raised me better than this," he whispered. "I did," I replied. Then I took out another envelope, this one thicker, and handed it to him. He opened it slowly. His eyes scanned the first page, then widened. "You're taking me out of the will," he said. "I'm not removing you," I clarified. "I'm reallocating. You'll still receive part of my savings, but the house, the property, the business assets." He looked up. "They're going to Devon," I said. He saw me. He sat with me. He didn't flinch when I held the key. He nodded slowly, his face unreadable. "I understand." I leaned back. "Do you?" He didn't answer. We sat in silence again. This time, I didn't break it. After a while, he stood. "Can I still visit?" he asked. "This is your home," I said. "But don't expect to leave as the same man when you walk out." He gave me a small, sad smile. "I already haven't." Then he left. I stood at the window and watched him walk to his car. That's the thing about consequences. People think they're loud, dramatic, explosive. But the best consequences are quiet. They happen on paper, in wills, in signatures, in the way people start using your name again, but now with reverence. It's the shift in tone when they realize the person they dismissed owns the land they're standing on. And once that shift happens, you don't have to say a word. A month passed. No one dared say my name without caution now. The same cousins who used to whisper, "He always thinks he knows best," were suddenly calling me Mr. Washington, with full respect in their voice. Church folk who used to overlook me on Sundays made sure to stop by my pew to say good morning. I didn't need their validation, but I saw what they were doing, and I let them. The clip of the wedding eviction had passed 10 million views. 10 million. Someone added dramatic music to it and turned it into a meme. Another user edited it into a mock movie trailer titled, "The Patriarch's Last Stand." It was all over Black Twitter. Even the radio station downtown brought it up during their morning show. They didn't say my name, but they called me that grandfather who checked everyone without raising his voice. That was fine by me. The venue sale had gone through smoothly. The new owner was a sweet couple from Atlanta who wanted to turn it into an event space for nonprofits. They called me twice just to thank me for how well I'd maintained the place. I wished them all the best and meant it. As for Marcus and Jasmine, well, let's just say not all things make it past the honeymoon stage. I didn't hear much from them after that visit. I didn't ask. Marcus sent a card on my birthday. No gift, just his name scribbled beneath a pre-printed, "With love." I kept it, not because it meant anything, but because I wanted the reminder. Some things you forgive. Others you simply remember. But Devin came over every Sunday after church. He'd bring groceries, help me with yard work, even helped me organize my old photo albums. He sat with me on the porch while I drank sweet tea and reminded me that my story wasn't over just because I got quiet again. One afternoon, he pulled out his laptop and said, "Grandpa, I've been working on something." I raised an eyebrow. Oh. He turned the screen toward me. It was a draft for a nonprofit, a logo, mission statement, and everything. "The Franklin Washington Foundation for Displaced Patriarchs," Devin said. "Too many men get erased from their own families. We can't fix them all, but we can make sure their stories aren't lost." I blinked hard, swallowed. "You really think people would support something like that?" I asked. "Grandpa," he said, "you broke the internet for doing what half the world only dreams of. And you didn't just throw a fit. You used a deed. You turned silence into structure." I shook my head, laughing through a tight throat. He opened his notebook. "We can start small. Maybe a monthly support circle. Later, we build into legal clinics, inheritance workshops, housing assistance." I leaned back in my chair, looked up at the ceiling like I was asking God for permission, and then I nodded. "All right," I said. "Let's do it." We filed the paperwork 2 weeks later. I donated part of the venue sale proceeds to get us started. The foundation covered our website domain, some flyers, and the first month of rent for a meeting space downtown. Our first meeting had 7 men. The next had 20. By the third month, we had over 75. Each man came with his own story. Some quiet, some tearful, some mad enough to shake the walls. One man said his son's wife told him not to wear cologne because it triggered her allergies. Another said he wasn't invited to his grandchild's birthday because he wasn't tech-savvy enough to be in the family group chat. I didn't give advice. I just listened. And then when they finished, I handed them a copy of their own rights as elders, homeowners, fathers, grandfathers. I told them what I learned, that silence is not respect. That humility is not invisibility. That you can be kind and still own the ground under someone's feet. And when they looked at me, they didn't see someone too loud or too old or too set in his ways. They saw a man who had been pushed into a storage room and came out with the deed to the whole damn building. 6 months after the wedding, something unexpected happened. Devin showed up with a newspaper clipping and a big grin. "Grandpa, look at this." It was an article from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, local foundation helps seniors fight family financial abuse. There was a photo of me at one of our monthly meetings, talking to a group of men about estate planning. They want to do a feature story, Devin said. About what you built from that wedding night. I read the article twice. It talked about how our foundation had helped dozens of elderly men protect their assets, update their wills, and set boundaries with manipulative family members. You know what the best part is? Devin asked. What? They called you a community leader and advocate for senior rights. Not the man from the viral video. You're not just a meme anymore, Grandpa. You're a movement. That evening, I got a call that surprised me. It was Marcus, but his voice was different. Quieter. More genuine. Dad, I saw the article, he said. What you've built, it's incredible. I didn't respond immediately. I've been going to counseling, he continued. Jasmine and I were separated. Have been for 2 months. I still didn't say anything. I keep thinking about that night. About how I let you sit in that storage room while I danced. About how I chose her comfort over your dignity. His voice cracked. I was so worried about keeping the peace that I forgot who taught me how to be a man in the first place. I sat down in my recliner, listening. I know I can't fix what I did. I know I hurt you in ways that probably can't be undone. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see how wrong I was. There was a long pause. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be the man you raised me to be. Finally. I thought about Devin and how he'd been showing up every week, helping me build something meaningful from the wreckage of that wedding night. I thought about the foundation and all the men who'd found their voices again. I thought about forgiveness, not the easy kind that erases consequences, but the hard kind that makes space for growth. You want to come by for Sunday dinner? I asked. Devin's coming over. We're grilling burgers. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Then I heard him crying. Yeah, Dad. I'd like that. Good. Come at 6. And Marcus? Yeah. Bring dessert. Something you made yourself. He laughed through his tears. Peach cobbler. Peach cobbler. As I write this, a year has passed since that wedding night. Devin and I have built something beautiful from the ashes of my humiliation. The Franklin Washington Foundation has helped over 200 elderly men protect themselves from financial abuse and family manipulation. Marcus comes to Sunday dinner every week now. We don't talk about Jasmine much, that chapter is closed. But we talk about the future, about the foundation, about the man he's becoming through therapy and hard work. Devin graduated with honors and got a job at a top engineering firm in Atlanta. At his graduation party, held in my backyard, at my insistence, he stood up to give a speech. A lot of people talk about their heroes, he said, looking directly at me. Athletes, celebrities, politicians. But my hero is my grandfather, who taught me that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to disappear quietly. The small crowd applauded, but I was focused on Marcus, sitting in the front row with tears in his eyes. After the party, he helped me clean up the yard. He's going to be something special, he said, stacking chairs. He already is. Just like his grandfather taught him to be. Which grandfather? I asked, smiling. Both of them, he said. The one who raised me, and the one who refused to let me forget who I was supposed to be. The foundation has grown beyond anything I imagined. We've opened a second location, hired a full-time social worker, and partnered with legal aid clinics across Georgia. Last month, we helped a 78-year-old veteran whose daughter was trying to force him into a nursing home so she could sell his house. He kept his home and his independence. You saved my life, he told me at our monthly meeting. I thought I was powerless. You were never powerless, I replied. You just forgot where your power was located. We've documented over 150 cases of elder financial abuse that we've helped resolve. Sons and daughters who thought they could manipulate aging parents discovered that those parents had lawyers, advocates, and a network of support they never expected. The wedding video still surfaces on social media from time to time. Someone will post it with a new caption, "When you try to play grandpa," or "Never underestimate an elder who built what you're standing on." It doesn't bother me anymore. If anything, it serves as a reminder to other families: respect your elders, or learn the hard way that they're not as helpless as you think. 6 months ago, I got an unexpected visitor. Jasmine showed up at my door, looking nothing like the bride who'd screamed at me in the parking lot. No designer clothes, no perfect makeup. Just a woman who looked tired and smaller than I remembered. "Mr. Washington," she said, "can we talk?" I invited her in, more out of curiosity than courtesy. She sat on the edge of my couch, hands folded, eyes down. "I came to apologize. I didn't respond. What I did to you at the wedding, putting you in that storage room, treating you like you didn't matter, it was wrong. It was cruel. And I knew it was wrong when I did it." I still didn't speak. I thought if I could just minimize you, maybe Marcus would finally choose me over his family. I was insecure and jealous, and I took it out on you. She looked up, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to hear it." "Why now?" I asked. She exhaled shakily. "Because I lost everything anyway. Marcus left. My friends saw the video and stopped calling. My job, well, let's just say having Bridezilla who disrespected elder as your Google search result doesn't help your career in public relations." I nodded. And I realized that the person I hurt most was the one person who actually loved Marcus unconditionally. "You paid for our whole wedding and never asked for anything except basic respect. And I couldn't even give you that." We sat in silence for a moment. "I don't expect forgiveness," she continued. "I just wanted you to know that I see what I did. And I'm trying to be better." I looked at this woman who had caused me so much pain, and I felt something I didn't expect: pity. Not the condescending kind, but the human kind. She was young, insecure, and had made choices that cost her everything she thought she wanted. "Thank you for coming," I said simply. It took courage. She nodded and stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "For what it's worth, Marcus talks about you all the time now. About how strong you are, how much he learned from you. He's proud to be your son." After she left, I called Marcus and told him about the visit. "How do you feel about it?" he asked. "I feel like a chapter finally closed," I said. "Not with forgiveness, necessarily, but with understanding." "She's in therapy," he said. "Has been since we separated." I think seeing the video and the aftermath, it really shook her. Made her realize how she'd been treating people. Good for her. Growth is never too late. "And Dad?" "Yeah. Thank you for teaching me that respect isn't negotiable. I forgot for a while, but I remember now. Last month, I did something I never thought I'd do. I bought another venue. Not to own, but to donate. A young couple from our foundation, a 72-year-old man and his partner, needed a place for their late-in-life wedding. Their families had rejected them, said they were too old for romance. I disagreed. The ceremony was beautiful. Small, intimate, filled with people who chose to be there. I sat in the front row, not because I demanded it, but because they insisted. During the toasts, the groom's new husband stood up and said something that stuck with me. "Love doesn't have an expiration date. Neither does dignity. Tonight, we celebrate both." Everyone raised their glasses, including me. After the reception, as I was leaving, a young woman approached me. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Mr. Washington?" "I'm Sarah, I was a server at your son's wedding. The one who brought you crackers in the storage room. I remembered her then. Hello, Sarah. I just wanted you to know, she said, what you did that night. It changed how I think about treating older customers at work. I never realized how invisible we can make people feel. I try to do better now. That's all any of us can do, I said. Try to do better. She smiled and walked away, but her words stayed with me. Sometimes the ripples from standing up for yourself spread farther than you ever imagine. 2 weeks ago, Devin brought me some news that made my chest swell with pride. Grandpa, I got accepted. To what? Law school. Georgia State. Full scholarship. I stood up from my chair so fast I nearly knocked over my coffee. You didn't tell me you applied. He grinned. I wanted to surprise you. I'm going to specialize in elder law. Figure the Franklin Washington Foundation needs a lawyer on staff. I hugged him tight, this young man who had sat with me in a storage room and decided to dedicate his life to making sure other elders never felt that small. Your parents would be so proud, I whispered. I learned from the best, he said. You taught me that dignity isn't something people give you. It's something you claim. As I write this final chapter, I'm sitting on my back porch, watching the sun set over a life I almost let other people define. The foundation continues to grow. Marcus and I have our Sunday dinners and they're real now, not obligatory, but chosen. Devin is starting law school in the fall with plans to protect elders who can't protect themselves. The house on Maple Street is secure, its ownership protected in a trust that no one can manipulate or steal. My bank accounts are monitored by people I trust, not people who see me as a walking inheritance. I still get messages from men who saw the wedding video and found the courage to stand up to family members who were taking advantage of them. Each one reminds me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is refuse to be erased. 3 months ago, I was invited to speak at a conference on elder rights in Washington, D.C. As I stood at that podium, looking out at an audience of advocates, lawyers, and seniors, I thought about that storage room and how it led me here. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my name is Franklin Washington. A year and a half ago, my son's wife put me in a storage room during their wedding reception. Tonight, I stand before you as proof that where they try to put you doesn't define where you'll end up. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. After my speech, a reporter asked me if I had any regrets about that wedding night. Just one, I said. I regret that it took me 73 years to learn that the people who love you will never ask you to make yourself smaller. And the people who ask you to make yourself smaller don't really love you. Last Sunday, as Marcus, Devin, and I sat on my porch after dinner, Devin asked a question that made us all think. Grandpa, if you could go back and change that wedding night, would you? I considered it seriously. If I could go back, would I want Jasmine to treat me with respect from the beginning? Would I want Marcus to stand up for me without having to learn the hard way? No, I said finally. Because then I never would have discovered what I was capable of. I spent 73 years being polite, accommodating, making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger. That night in the storage room, that was the night I remembered who I was. Marcus reached over and squeezed my shoulder. I'm glad you remembered, Dad. Even if it took losing you for me to find myself. Sometimes, I said, you have to be willing to burn down what's not working to build something better. Devin raised his glass of sweet tea. To building something better. To building something better, Marcus and I echoed. As the stars came out over Atlanta, 3 generations of Washington men sat together, not because we had to, but because we chose to. Not because blood makes you family, but because respect does. The delivery driver who brought me those wedding papers probably has no idea what he set in motion. A simple mistake, bringing me documents that revealed the truth, that saved my dignity and taught me that I was never too old to fight for myself. But maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe it was just time for the truth to find its way home. And the truth is this, I am Franklin Washington, and I am not disappearing. Not from family photos, not from wills, not from the buildings I built with my own hands, and not from the story I'm still writing. They tried to put me in storage. Instead, I became the foundation. My house is mine. My money is mine. My story is mine. My dignity is mine. And anyone who thinks they can take that away will learn exactly what this old construction worker is still capable of building, and tearing down. I am Franklin Washington. I am 74 years old. I was put in a storage room at my son's wedding and came out owning the whole damn building. And that building, that foundation, that legacy, ain't going nowhere. Ever. At our foundation meeting last week, a new member joined us, an 80-year-old man named Robert whose daughter-in-law had been trying to convince him to sign over power of attorney so she could help manage his finances. He'd been resisting but felt guilty about it until he heard my story. I thought I was being stubborn, he told the group. But listening to Franklin, I realized I was just being smart about protecting what I worked for. After the meeting, he approached me privately. How do I start? He asked. How do I protect myself without destroying my relationship with my son? I handed him Devon's business card. My grandson had passed the bar early and was already taking cases through our foundation. You start with a conversation, I said. But you have that conversation from a position of strength, not weakness. You protect your assets first, then you protect your heart. 6 months later, Robert called me with an update. His daughter-in-law had been upset initially, but eventually backed down when she realized he had legal representation and wasn't the easy target she thought he was. His son had apologized and they'd worked out an arrangement where he helped with errands, but Robert maintained complete financial independence. You were right, he said. The conversation was easier when I knew I had choices. These are the stories that matter now. Not the money I saved or the building I sold, but the people I've helped find their own voices. The fathers and grandfathers who've learned that love and boundaries can coexist. The families who've discovered that respect doesn't diminish affection, it enhances it. Last month, I started writing a book. Not just about my experience, but about the experiences of all the men in our foundation. Stories of financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and the courage it takes to stand up to the people you love most. The working title is, Built to Last, A Man's Guide to Staying Visible in Your Own Family. Devon is helping me edit it. He says it's important for younger generations to understand that aging doesn't equal helplessness, that wisdom includes knowing when to say no. Marcus read the first draft and called me afterward. Dad, he said, I hope someday I'm brave enough to be half the father you've been. You already are, son, I told him. You just needed to remember it. The young server who brought me crackers in that storage room probably has no idea what she witnessed. A simple act of reluctant hospitality that became part of a story about standing up for yourself when everyone expects you to sit down. But maybe she knows more than I think. Maybe she remembers the man in the storage room who walked out owning the building. Maybe she tells that story to other people who feel invisible. And the truth is this, I am Franklin Washington, and I am not disappearing. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. My foundation is strong. My family is chosen. My story is still being written. And anyone who thinks they can write me out of it will find out exactly what this old builder is still capable of constructing, and what he's willing to demolish to protect what he's built. The foundation they tried to hide me from became the foundation I built for others. And that foundation, that legacy, that truth, ain't going nowhere. Ever.